Hey guys, Ollie here, and welcome back to ManyMotion. So here it is. This is the first of the iPi tests for the four PlayStation Eyes, and this is the camera setup test. There's a few things I just want to point out before I actually go into the presentation part of it, and that is a few discrepancies or problems that you may notice in the actual video. The biggest one is that in the diagrams I've labelled the cameras as 1, 2, 3 and 4, but in the actual program itself the numbers are kind of jumbled up a little bit, like camera 1 is maybe camera 3 or camera 2, I can't quite remember. That's a issue on my part. I should have checked that beforehand, but I wanted to make that apparent now so you don't think I'm trying to skew test data in any way. That was just an error on my part. So yeah, foolishly, what I should have done is I should have checked the cameras before I actually hit record that they were in 1, 2, 3, 4 in a sort of lineage as to what the cameras actually were. Whether that does actually change data, I'm not entirely sure, but maybe someone can tell me that it will, or it won't, or it should be fine, or it wasn't. So yeah, with that said, I hope there's some interesting information or something in the video that might spur you on to do something, or might give you an idea, or if you notice anything which is just totally out of whack that I'm doing, let me know, because I'm always trying to refine the process and get the best that I can out of it. So yeah, without further ado, let's get on with it.
Okay, guys, so this is the first iPi test I'm doing. Sorry, I keep saying IPI. iPi test I'm going to be doing, and it's camera setups for 4 PlayStation Eyes. Now, I'm trying to briefly go through this as quickly as possible because there's quite a lot I want to get through. So what is this test about? Well, we're trying to determine what the best setup is for 4 PlayStation Eyes. We're going to be looking for which gives us the most comprehensive data, so which is the data which is going to be able to give us the best view of those tight angles and those really hard motions to capture. And also data that is also going to allow us to have more of an idea of how to hand clean this stuff up if needs be. We're going to be tying into that which setup allows for easier cleanup. This ties into what I just said about the whole being able to see as much as you need to see for cleanup, not only in Ipisoft but out of Ipisoft. Damn it! Being able to refit poses and stuff like that as you're going along, or having to position a hand or something just briefly, or maybe even fingers and stuff, just which allows us for easier cleanup in that sense. How does camera height affect a capture? So we're going to be using around about the 2 meter mark for some setups that we're using, and I want to see, or I want to kind of ascertain how a high camera looking down affects what it can pick up, and if it can pick up stuff which something more landscape wouldn't be able to pick up. And which setup handles the more problematic poses. So we're going to be looking at, there's one pose in particular, or one motion, should I say, which is quite problematic, and being able to see which setup is able to best handle those poses and those difficult motions, so it will be easier in the long run to clean that stuff up. So here are some of the rules that I've set for this, because you've got to have rules. We're trying to be as scientific as possible here. I'm giving myself 2 minutes of calibration time. For people that have used the software before, they know that you have to calibrate with a mag light. Now, normally in the past, I've done calibrations that were a lot longer than this, but I decided to give myself 2 minutes, not only for the interest of time, because I didn't have a super long amount of time in the mocap room I had to set up and everything, so not only because of getting through that time, but wanting to see what 2 minutes could actually do, if it is enough. So on the future tests for calibration, I can use that as a starting point. So 2 minutes of calibration time. I'm allowing myself 4 ground points. So for people who don't know, when you're doing your calibration, normally you touch the floor a couple of times, normally towards the end of your calibration, and you tell then the Ipisoft that these are your ground points, and from doing that it establishes a ground plane and it tries to figure out where the actual floor is, in the real world, so it can better track your motions in 3D space. Same clothing worn throughout, so I'm not trying to be consistent. I'm not trying to switch up clothing or anything to mix up data and try and make something not capture as good as something else. Everything is done using the same clothes. I'm allowing myself to analyze my appearance a maximum of 3 times. This doesn't really seem like such a big thing, but I wanted to stick it in there. Analyzing an appearance is basically when you kind of say to the mesh, this is what I'm wearing, so it can determine where you are from the background in relation to all of the cameras. So if you're wearing a blue top, it will find that you're wearing a blue top, so then all of the cameras know to look for a blue top when it's tracking a certain bone. So I'm allowing myself to analyze my appearance a maximum of 3 times. Saying that, I'm allowing myself unlimited refits, so that means I can refit at the very beginning, I can refit mid-shot if one arm is going astray or something. I'm allowing myself to kind of try and move that hand back with the hand, but then have to use a refit in order to get it to stay where it is. Foot, shoulder, and head tracking are on, and I'm not allowing myself any hand animation. So the most I'm allowed to use hand animation in this is to move a hand or something back to a position and then refit. So I'm not trying to hand animate anything whatsoever. So let's look at the setups. We've got 4 setups here. The first 2 are, well, all of these are kind of laid out on the IPI website, and they suggest a half, like a half moon shape, a half circle shape, or the full kind of box method slash a full circle method if you've got 6 PlayStation Eyes. The first one is everything that's kind of like lower chest to around about chin height. And you can see the capture space I've got in total is 8 meters by 8 meters. So yeah, we're averaging around about the 1.4 meters range there. And the X is where the actor is going to be standing. Setup number 2 is where I start using the higher cameras. So we've got 2 2-meter cameras there that are looking down from both left and right, and we'll be able to see how that actually affects the capture. Setup number 3 is a method that I've used a lot of times before, and that's basically the box method. So all of these cameras are all looking in towards that X. And setup 3 is, yet again, more around the lower chest to chin region. And setup number 4 is exactly the same as setup number 3, really, except for those extra 2-meter cameras. So bottom left and top right, we've got 2 2-meter cameras that are both looking down on the subject. Okay, so a couple of things to note. I'm actually using, I have 2 PCs at the moment that I'm currently doing work on, and I'm using my lesser PC to do all the tracking and whatnot, and I'm using my better PC to do all the capture. So I'm using an older PC to work on, so just bear that in mind. It takes around about 2 seconds per frame for me on the tracking. It's worth noting at this point that each of the videos that when they were cleaned up took about 40 minutes to an hour. No video had more than an hour spent on it, but they were mostly around about the 47 to 58 minutes region. I'm trying not to spend so long on intricate cleanup. I've kind of touched on this before, but if I'm desperately trying to move a hand and trying to refit and move a hand and trying to refit and it's not getting it, I'm just going to kind of walk away from it. I will give it its time, but I am not going to sit there and try and refit it so it's perfect, because that is not what this test is about. This test is about trying to get the best data you can from a setup, raw data. None of this like trying to do massive amounts of cleanup. I'm trying to get the best I can from doing as little as I can at the moment, if that makes sense. So yeah, to go on to that, this is not a final animation, so don't see what's coming out of this and think this is what this piece of software can do. It can do so much more. I'm not adding jitter removal, I'm not doing any of that stuff yet. And it was recorded at 40 Hz in colour. The reason I did it at this is because this is the best my PC could do without dropping frames. So 40 Hz and in colour. Okay, so let's look at setup 1. Before we go and have a look at the actual video, I've recorded the heights at the top there of what the actual cameras were, and after calibration I recorded exactly what iPi came up with. So you can see that it's ridiculously close to what I'm actually doing. I don't actually think that these discrepancies in height would actually do anything major to the capture, the tracking process. So let's quickly go and have a look at that video now. So here we are, guys. We're in the video now, and don't worry about any kind of lag that's coming on. It's because I'm trying to record the screen at the same time, and as I say, I'm using my older PC to do this stuff. So the first thing that you can probably notice is that the ground plane is not super good at the moment. It's kind of it feels like it's kind of going through the ankles a little bit here, and I went back and looked at old calibration videos that I'd done, and I realized that I spent a lot longer on calibration and a lot longer doing floor points. So instead of throwing all this data out, I thought I would use it just because it would be interesting to see how the software kind of tries to clean up this stuff with a kind of weird ground plane. Like, what would it do? Would it actually do a good job of it? So I'm keeping the ground plane, but believe me, on future videos, the calibration video I'm going to do, I'm going to be sorting that stuff out. But for the moment, this is what we've got to work with. So let's just play it through, and I'll pause it when some big problem areas come up. So the motions that I did was a big star jump. Now you can see the first bit of issue right there. We've got some pretty terrible feet going on there, and I do honestly put this down to the ground plane because it's trying to bend the knees, and if we take the skin off a little bit, I mean, it's trying to bend the knees, but the feet are down here, but it really can't pass through this section, so it kind of squashes up and it needs to put the foot somewhere. But yeah, so that's like the first bit there. I did try to refit this a couple of times, but it didn't kind of work out. I also do like working around about this region, by the way, on the skin. I like to see just the outline of the actual mesh. I like to see the bones more so, and I like to see, well, I don't like to see me, but I like to see me just so I can see the actual pose of what's going on. So let's continue playing. So we've got a star jump there. That's pretty good. Now this one I thought would be a lot more trouble, and that's the tuck. But it seems like every single one of the setups handled this really well. I mean, there was some errors, I believe, on this one. Yeah, it was on this one. Sorry, I've got the notes here. There were some errors on this one where the left arm here kind of freaked out around about. I think it was around about here, like just as the arm comes back. I think the arm just kind of stayed down here a little bit, but that was a simple IK move and a refit, and yeah, and then that was fine. The feet in the air, they're kind of, they're kind of pointing forward a little bit. I think, yeah, they are here. You see, but yeah, again, this could have something to do with the ground plane and not actually picking up the base of the foot here and being able to kind of move these points down. But yeah, again, something really simple to change in hand animation. Oh, and quickly, before I carry on, you can also see that these cameras, as I said before, are set up perfectly. These are all my cameras, the tripods here, and it just, you can't really see two and one here, but like they lined up perfectly. So let's carry on. Now this is where things get a bit funky. Oh, there you go, couple of push-ups. Now, every single one had a bit of a problem with this, and it always seemed to be with this right hand. Now I realised that the hand here is kind of close to a couple of shots, like there in particular. It's pretty close. I did try my best to kind of stabilise the hand and move it to where it needed to be, but ultimately it became more of a hassle than it was worth. And I decided to just kind of like let it go and just see where it tracked to. But yeah, the push-up is the big pose. If you can get the push-up right, it's probably happy days. So there we go. There's the push-up. Let's do a bit of a spin around quickly. And then I did 4 pointing sections there in the 4 directions. Now, I honestly thought that this point here might be a bit of an issue, but we're in a semicircle at the moment, so we haven't got any cameras back in these corners, but obviously these 2 cameras, 4 and 3, can pick up this arm here, so it did a really good job of that. I think there might have been a slight issue with, yeah, right there. That's something I didn't actually notice that until now, but yeah, that seems like, oh, does it seem like an easy fix? Interesting. This could be a potential problem, as I don't have anything back here to kind of line this elbow up with. The closest thing I have is this hand and the elbow there, or this shot here, which is technically lined up with the elbow. So in this particular instance, using the half circle method is kind of found the elbow here, but back here it's having a bit of trouble. Out of interest, let's try and do a quick refit now and see if it would actually, if I can grab the gimbal, there we go. Okay, so we're looking around about there maybe? Let's see if we can do a quick refit. No, it's going straight back to the head, so yeah, that's that then. So let's move on to the next part anyway. So okay, here's setup 2. And we've got the recorded heights there of 2 meters, 1 meter 47, 1 meter 20, and 2 meters. This is the first kind of high angle shot that I tried to do then, and you can see that still Ipisoft is really picking up those camera heights really well, despite the calibration problems that I'm going to be having with just doing 2 minutes of calibration. It's still picking up those areas really well. So let's go and have a look at the video now and see how it all cleaned up. So here's video number 2. And yeah, let's just hit play. This is still using the half circle method, but as you can see, I've got some chairs here which are kind of holding up this tripod here. And yeah, these are the extra 2 shots that we've got then. So they're a little bit higher. It did kind of cut off this part of the capture space a little bit. But yeah, let's just see how it goes anyway. So, come for the first star jump. Now the feet on that one were relatively okay. I mean we've got a bit of an issue there. We've still got a bit of Passover, let's say, on one foot from the other, and it's really not picking it up here. But relatively okay. The height might have actually done something with that. The star jump was obviously just fine. The tuck there. Tuck was relatively good. We've got a bit of an issue with this foot kind of crossing onto this foot here. And I remember there was a massive issue with this arm at this point. For some reason, for some unknown reason, it's still, well, here as well, it's still a bit off. Obviously this isn't going to be used as a pinpoint accurate, you know, motion amazingness, like doesn't need to be touched ever again, but you know, this amount of distance here might start to get a little bit worrying. But this arm here, as it swung back, this was a massive problem. For some reason it just would not want to go back up there, but eventually I did get it up there. It took a little bit of a while, but got it up there eventually. So here we go. Here's the big C. Okay, so the first one, no chance in hell for trying to save it on the refit, for me at least. I tried so many times because I knew this was the problematic pose. For some reason, every single time, it just wanted to go to the face, even though there is 1, 2, well, that's where it's obscured, but 3 different shots. The hand is a little bit out here. 3 different shots where it's obvious that this here is not correct. I attempted to move the clavicle, kind of rotate the clavicle up a bit, because that is the actual posture that was going on. And then and then bringing the arm across here and then giving it a little bit more space to get this arm flat down here, but it was not having any of it, unfortunately. So the second one here is actually alright. The second one was okay. You know, there's always hand jitter going on, and yet again I put that down to the ground plane a little bit. There's always a little bit of hand jitter going on in these press-ups, but the second one, it got the nice bend here. It kept its form and everything, and that might have something to do with the higher camera angles. So always something to keep in mind. The points. Let's just check out how that back point is. Yeah, looks pretty good to me. Feet have always been an issue on this last turning point as well, but yet again, the ground plane, it just doesn't seem to like to pick up the direction of the feet. And there we go. So that's video 2 anyway. So setup number 3 is our full first square setup. We're looking at, yet again, stuff that's around about the lower chest to the chin region, somewhere around there. And as you can see again, I mean, I think this is the biggest discrepancy here. I'm not sure. Camera number 1 here, 10 centimeters off. I think that's the most that we've seen. Everything else is, as you can see, a couple of centimeters off. But I think that's the biggest discrepancy I've had yet. So let's check the video out now and see how it did. Okay, so here we are. This is setup number 3. Just giving you a quick kind of rundown of all the cameras here. As you can see, the cameras really do line up well. This is my tripod here, and there's number 2. Number 1 was at the top of a mic stand there. We've got number 4, which was in the corner here, surrounded by chairs, and then number 3 at the back here. So yeah, again, did a really good job of finding the cameras. I think the discrepancy was on number 1, wasn't it? So it's this one here, maybe just like a little bit 10 centimeters out in some direction. So let's have a look at the video anyway. Nice star jump. Let's just take a look at the feet there. We see we have a little bit of a problem with the feet there, which is evident in all the plays that we've had so far. The tuck. Let's have a quick look around the tuck. Oh, yeah, we've got a bit of a foot error going on there, which could potentially be thingied out, be refitted out. Still small fries for me at the moment if I had to go and fix this. Let's look at the next motion. So here we go. Very interesting. Now on the square setup, these elbow deformations are they're kind of all there. It can pick it up, and it can. I mean, there's a bit of a twist in there. That's a bit weird, but for the most part, it's picking up that elbow definition, and the hand is not getting so attached to the face. Sure, the hands are kind of going a bit crazy, but it's not as crazy as well, I don't know. It's I would say that it's less personally, but I guess that's up for you to decide. And the points. Beautiful. Now let's go and have a look at setup number 4. So here we go, here's setup number 4. And this was the one that's using 2 kind of overhead cameras in the square formation. As you can see, we've got an even bigger discrepancy here. 13 centimeters out on camera number 1 here. It's quite a big discrepancy, but the others still kind of hold true. So I'm starting to think that something may have happened with camera number 1 at this point. Something with movement or something. I'm not entirely sure. That something between the calibration, but something happened here that twice now in a row it's had quite a big discrepancy. So let's go and have a look at the video anyway. Okay, so here we go. Let's just cycle around the cameras quickly for you. So we've got 1 there, we've got 2 there, we've got 3 high up here, and we've got 4 over the opposite side, which is quite high up, kind of looking down at the actor here. Yeah, so let's just play through the video. So we're gonna have our first motion, which is the star jump. I remember on this one I forgot what to do, so I'm like, yep. Oh, there we go. So let's just have a look at the feet there before the star jump. Yeah, again, I'm putting this down to the ground plane a little bit, but yeah, we get a bit of a mess up there. Let's carry on. The tuck. Yep, it wasn't a great tuck, but it's still kind of getting everything. We're missing a foot here, which kind of gets lost a little bit in the, well, it's there, and it's in front of the other foot, so it's something to work with at least. It's a little bit off there, but yeah, so let's carry on. Now the push-ups again, I mean the hands are going to spaz out because of that ground plane, but those arm deformations again are much better than what we were getting in the semicircle. Now it might have been just the semicircle for some reason had a really bad calibration, but based on this, it's very telling that we're able to get those kind of arm bends in there, whereas in other. Oh, that's a bit of the same situation as well with the hand, just kind of spazzing out a little bit there. But there, you can see it kind of reaching up for this ground plane line here. So yeah, I'm putting that down to the ground plane. But yeah, still being able to get those bends in and whatnot. Yeah, again, those bends could actually be down to the ground plane again. So let's just carry on a little bit. 1, 2. Looks like it's lagging a little bit on the hand a little bit there. And yeah, there we go. So yeah, we've looked at all 4 of the videos. You've seen the data. Now, I think I'm going to go on to a little bit of an evaluation to tell you what I think of these different setups.
So in conclusion to all of that stuff that you've just watched, and if you've gotten this far, thanks for sticking it out like 30 minutes until this point. So in conclusion, I'm kind of feeling like when it comes to setups, say half circle and heights and whatnot, it kind of comes down to user preference and what you actually want to do. I don't mean to sound like that's a big cop-out or anything, because I certainly have my own preference, which I'll get onto. But it depends a lot on the space that you've got. It depends a lot on if you can actually push to 2 meters. I thought that pushing the cameras up would actually give some different data, but in reality, looking back at it, it's just different types of cleanup, really. There was no real clear advantage from going a little bit higher and looking down. It might be advantageous in certain situations, but in this particular instance, I don't feel like, in the cleanup stages at least, it gave that much of an advantage. It may give an advantage in some situations, but with the motions that I was doing, I found that the cameras being higher didn't really give any advantage to the tracking process at all. It just kind of did what it did. So saying that, I can only really give you an evaluation from personal preference, and my personal preference is I really liked the cleanup on the lower range, so the lower chest to chin, nothing over the higher, no 2 meter mark in the square formation. Admittedly, it's a setup that I've used before, but in the tracking process, it felt like I had to do a lot less. There was just a lot of small movements that I needed to do, or, oh, this hand's going a bit ski-whiff off there, let's just put it back, and then it's fine again, as opposed to not being able to get back into the position that it needed to get into. Obviously, the ground plane seems to be playing quite a big factor into not being able to pick up certain things, and hopefully the calibration test video, which should be coming up next, will sort out that, and we'll be able to see the 4 setup in that kind of mid-range region with a really good calibration video, hopefully with 6 different calibration videos, so look forward to that. So yeah, the height wasn't really much of a contributing factor, but I'm surprised about how much the half moon actually picked up. I thought little things like the feet and the pointing backwards, and especially the feet on the tuck, might have been a little bit more of a problematic area for that, as it hasn't really got anything on the back too. It's got it from the sides here, but it's not got it from the back. But it did a really good job of that, so potentially if you're going to be using 3 PlayStation Eyes and you have to go for this triangular setup, it might not be so bad. You might be able to get a good amount of data out of it. I guess if you're doing a lot of motions which are less fiddly in the back than they are on the front, doing that half moon setup would be ideal, because you're having more cameras focused on the front of the body where a lot of the actions are going on. Whereas, say, in a cutscene style of motion capture, where you may have multiple actors and you might need to, for lack of a better way of putting it, interact with the scene which isn't there. I honestly think the square setup might be better, as you're able to capture those little fiddly parts and whatnot from a 360-degree angle, whereas the interaction with the scene on the half moon is potentially limited to what's in front of you and not being able to utilize anything from behind you. I could also argue that if you are actually going to have to go in and hand animate any of these parts, those back 2 cameras on the 360 square setup are going to be really useful. Whereas on the half moon you've got the sides, you have no real... It's difficult to explain, but you saw it on that one part with the elbow. I didn't really have anything else to go on. Whereas on a 360 setup, that might have been a lot easier to either refit, or if I did need to have to go into hand maneuvering it in there, it might have been a lot easier with a 360-degree camera setup. Nevertheless, though, you can really see the power of Ipisoft. There is very little difference in the actual tracking data for all 4 of these setups. It's more about the amount of effort that you have to put into it in order to get something out of it. And personally, from when I was tracking the data, I felt like I had to do a lot less on the 360 setups, and I also had to do a lot less on the 360 setups that didn't have any of those 2-meter overhang. I don't know what it is about the 2-meter overhang. It might just be that you're potentially obscuring parts of your body, whereas I thought doing that in the test would actually give a more rounded view of the subject. But, you know, that's what these tests are for, figuring out what is going to work best. So for the calibration video, which is coming up, I think I'm going to be using the square setup, 360, and I'm going to be using it from around about chin to lower chest height. I think that's going to be the baseline of where I'm going to be doing stuff for the future. At least with 4 PlayStation Eyes. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. If you have gotten this far, that's brilliant. I hope you got something out of it. And yeah, the next video that will be coming up is the calibration video, and I'm only hoping it's going to be a little shorter than this one. So yet again, thanks for watching. If you've got any comments, or if you've got any suggestions for how I could have done a little bit better, or what I can do to get a better result, just let me know. Message me, put a comment in the comments or whatever, and yeah, I'll read all of them, and yeah, anything to make this better. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, see you later.